Okay, now I want to talk about the loops, chapter 4. Again, because you're coming from your CS2 course, you should know these things. We're just going to quickly go over it to see how we're going to do it in Python. So the concept is not talking about loop, is how we're going to apply loops in the Python. So that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about while loop, for loop, and how we're going to do those things in Python. So the while loop, again, remember, we are going to be using colon for Python. So we would put the word while in there, and then we check the condition. And if the condition is correct, we're going to go in. Remember, for the while loop, we have to do set, check, and change. So set is we're gonna set it somewhere. Otherwise, we might not even go inside of these things. So we have a target that is defined as a constant. So we have to have some value in here before we do it. Excuse me. Then we're gonna be checking it over here, and we have to be sure that we're gonna change this condition somewhere inside the while. Otherwise, we're gonna stay here forever. So we're going to set it before we get into the while loop. We're going to check it in the while loop, and we're going to change it in the while. So I'm setting the counter to 1. I'm checking to see if the counter is less than or equal to 10. I'm going to print it, and I'm going to change it. So set, check, change. Or your book is talking about initialize, check, update. So different ways of the while loop. I'm not going to go through this. I'm expecting that you guys already know this stuff. If you don't, you can review it, and you have questions, bring it to the DQ. Let's talk about it. So if we are changing and we are not changing it correctly, we can end up with an endless loop. That's the danger of the while. So instead of going down, if I'm going up, so if my condition never reaches, I'm going to stay there forever. The common is up by 1 error. We have to be sure that we're going to be checking these things. Coming from C++, we always started with 0, going 1 less than the end of it. So if I wanted to do 5, I started from 0 to less than 5. But if I start with 1 and I go less than 5, I'm going to get only 4. So I can go 1 less than or equal 5, or 0 less than 5. And I got to be careful about that. Otherwise, I'm going to have either 1 extra or 1 less. So again, hand tracing, please practice on that at least one time to be sure you understand how to do this. So with the while loop, we can have a sentinel value. So we can be checking for a sentinel value. So in here, we are checking to see if the salary is a negative number. If it's a negative number, we're going to get out. So we're going to ask the user enter salary till it's a negative number. So we're going to stay here as long as they give me a positive salary. As soon as they give me a negative salary, I'm going to get out of this while. So the things that we can do, we can count, we can total, those kind of things. I'm not going to go. So the best way that I like to do while loop is I would do my read outside of my while loop, and then at the last statement in my while loop, I will do that again. So remember I said set, check, change. So I would read my input from the user, and if the first input is negative number, I'm not even going to go through this. So I'm going to read it from the user, and then I'm going to read it at the end here too. So that's what we're going to be doing. We can set a Boolean variable. So we can say while not done, we start with false. So not false is true. And we can go to stay in this while loop till a condition happen. And if that condition happen, we can change our Boolean variable to true. So we can put that one in there for the while loop. I'm not going to go through this storyboard. I suggest you take a look at it. Common loop algorithm, we can do the sum, average, counting matches, prompting until a match is found, maximum, minimum, comparing adjustment values. So those are the examples that is in there. So you can see for the minimum and maximum, we're going to get the first input. We're going to set our minimum or maximum to the first input, and then we're going to go and keep asking for the next input. And depending of the minimum or maximum, we're going to compare it. If we're looking for the minimum, if my number that I'm reading is smaller than my minimum, I'm going to set that to my minimum. So if I'm checking two things next to each other, I'm going to be getting so I'm checking for the empty line. So I'm asking the user to keep entering till we get an empty line. Okay, for loop. For loop is a little different in here than C++. C++ has some of these things in there, but I don't think we practice it enough. So remember what I said about the while loop? You would do set, check, change. Of course, in the for loop, we're going to do all of them in one statement. Now, if I have strings, I can just say for letter in state name. So it's going to go through each character, and it's going to pick up one of those characters. So we can do that for the for loop. We can say range. So when we are using range, we have three different um, function for the range. We have one that has the starting point, and this is one less than ending point. So we are not going to, so it's inclusive on 1, exclusive on 10. So when I say range 1 to 10, it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and it's going to stop. So it's going to stop at 1 before this. If I don't put the first one, it's going to start with 0. So we can have the same thing. So I can have a range with 1 parameter. I can have a range with 3 parameters. So if I have with 2 parameters, this is my starting point. If I have with 1 parameter, my starting point is going to be 0. If I have 3 parameters, the last one is a step. So I'm going to go from 1, 2, through 9, 1 through 9, and I'm stepping 2. So it's going to be, in this case, it's going to go 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and it's going to stop. The first one is going to go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So if I say range 10, I'm going to, that's what we're going to have. which is 10 numbers. So if I have 5, it's going to start with that. 1 through 5 is actually 1 through 4, and this. So you should practice on this. It's a little different than what you're used to, but it's very, very useful, very friendly. So the question is, if I have a for I in range 6, what values of I we're going to get? If I have I in range of 10 and 16, what values do I get for I? Remember, it's going to start at 10 and it's going to stop at 15. If I have a 0, 9, 2, then what does that mean? I'm going to start with 0. I'm going to go 1 less than 9, and I'm going to step 2. So what numbers do I get? 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. And if I have a negative 1, then I'm going to go backward. So I start with 5, and then what? So you can see I'm going to stop at 1. So in the previous one, we were stopping 1 less than this. In this one, we're going to stop 1 above this. So that's basically the for loop. So this is the planning. You should go through it. This is basically for CS2 students. So I'm not worried about you guys. You just want to do it in Python. So here we're going to be talking about the special format of a print. Remember, if you do the print, it's going to go to the next line. But if I don't want to go to the next line, I'm just going to put end equal empty string. So my end, okay, so this is a function. Print is a function. Function can be overloaded. So I can have 1 parameter, 2 parameter, or maybe more parameters. So in this case, if I have 1 parameter, my end is going to be set to the default, which is new line. But if I put the end to this, it's just going to print and it's going to put this at the end. So it's not going to be \n. So we can overwrite that. We can put the loops inside the loops. You guys know this already. I shouldn't worry about that. So this is talking about how we're going to create a 2-dimensional table. So we're going to have a loop that goes through the rows, one loop that goes through the columns. So we can go the rows and columns, or columns and rows, however you want to do it. So let's take a look at this one. So if I have for I in range 3, for j in range 4, print the star, and end is empty, and then we have the print. So you got to think about, why do I have this print? So I'm going to be printing this in one line, and then I'm going to go to the next line. So think about this, write it down. What do you think is going to be the result of this? So how many rows and how many columns do I have? I have 3 rows and 4 columns, starting with 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to be printing stars. When you put okay, the next one, it says I range 4, J range 3, and now we're going to have 4 rows and 3 columns. And the last one is talking about I in range 4, but the J is going to be in range of I plus 1. So as I am increasing my rows, my J is going to be increasing. So that's what's going to happen to that one. Remember the modulus. So if I am checking for the modulus, I am looking for odd number if my modulus is 1. So we have to go through these steps. You're going to put this as your design for every program. So we have to understand the problem. That's step 1. Step 2, we're going to do the calculation here. Step 3, we're going to repeat the process. Step 4, we're going to put it in the Python. And you have some configuration on your IDE. You can go in there and you can so your IDEs have some configuration. You can go in there and play with it. And one of the things talking over here is you have the indentation over there. You can set it to certain number. So when you do a colon and you push enter, that can be set for you. What else? So we can do the character in a string. We don't have per se a character in Python. It is basically a string as one thing. So we can go to each character of a string to do something. In here, we are checking to see if the character is in this string. So that would be my vowel. So I'm defining it as a while. I could define it as a constant and check it. We can check for all the matches. We can use the bracket. So we can go to each one of them, and then we can use the bracket for each one of them. We did this in CS2. What else? We can validate the string to see if it's in the format that we want. So we can check the position. Remember, we use the bracket to go to the specific position. So in certain position, we want to have parentheses and so on and so forth. So we can check it for validation. We can start a new string with empty string, and we can add stuff to it. So here I'm just adding the characters that I want into the card number. In here, we're talking about random number generators. So we are talking about rand. We have a different version of it. The rand int is the one that we're going to be using over here. And rand int is one of the few, if not the only one, that's the second number is going to be inclusive. So remember in the for loop, if I would put 1 and 6, it would not go to 6. but the rand int, it will go there. So if I put rand int 16, it's going to create a number between 1 and 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, randomly. What else? So if I do a random, it's going to create a random number between -1 and 1, if I just use the random. Okay, I'm going to leave this digital image for the next video. We're going to stop right here.